All right, let's just jump right in. The title of this whole thing is a question, right? Does AI dream of electric UFOs? Now, I know it sounds like something straight out of a Philip K. Dick novel, but we're living in this weird new age. The tech we have now feels both like magic and, you know, kind of alien. And that's where this question comes from. The connection between these things might be way more real than you'd ever guess. You've probably seen them, right? These AI-generated images are everywhere. And if you've played around with them yourself, you know the feeling. It's this weird mix of, wow, that's amazing, and something else, a little bit of unease. You look at these pictures and you just know, deep down, something is off. So what is that? Why do these images from a machine get under our skin so much? Well, it really gets to the heart of that whole uncanny valley idea. The AI is brilliant at creating things we recognize instantly, a person's face, a beautiful landscape, a cozy room. But then it messes up the details in these bizarre ways. You see a hand with 6, maybe 7 fingers, a building that just couldn't exist in our world. A smile that's, well, it's just a little too wide. It doesn't have any life behind it. It's that exact combination, the thing we know mixed with the thing that is just wrong. That's what makes it so disturbing. And it's not just about the glitchy details either. It goes way deeper. The whole perspective of these images can feel, well, not human. It's like the camera is being held by something that just doesn't understand space or physics or how objects relate to each other in the same way we do. The source material we're looking at really nails it when it says, we just weren't trained for this kind of art. So what we're dealing with here isn't just a new Photoshop filter. It's a whole new way of seeing, a completely new aesthetic. It's a true oddity, and honestly, it can feel a little alienating. We have never, ever seen the world presented like this before. But here's the crazy part. Even though it's so strange, it's magnetic. You can't stop looking at it. But what if I told you this strange signature, this bizarre way of seeing things, isn't actually new at all? Yeah, that's right. That exact same bizarre, dreamlike vibe, that mix of something beautiful and something kind of monstrous, it has a shocking parallel in history, an echo from a place you would probably never think to look. We're talking about the long, strange history of UFO encounters. I mean, for decades, researchers have been collecting thousands of these close encounter stories, and the one thing they all have in common is that they are just weird. And it's not just, oh, aliens are weird. No, it's that the stories themselves don't make sense. They're incoherent. You get reports of flying saucers landing in a field just to, scan a tree, or beings in these clunky, ridiculous-looking suits who move around like they don't know how their own bodies work. The technology is often described as looking kind of fake, almost like a cheap movie prop. It's this total mess of everyday stuff mixed with the completely bizarre. Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. Just look at the words people use to describe both things. For AI art, we say it has errors. It creates impossible scenes. For UFO encounters, people describe them as defective, full of absurd events. See the pattern? Both are described as nonlinear, disordered, and deeply disturbing. It is the exact same signature of strangeness, a shared language of absurdity, showing up in 2 completely different places, decades apart. So, what if that's not a coincidence? What if all this absurdity, all this weirdness, isn't a mistake? What if it's not a flaw in the transmission, but the transmission itself? That's what we're going to dig into next. The idea that we might be looking at a totally unique form of communication, a language made of absurdity. The central idea here is something called a defective transmission. So just imagine for a second you're getting a signal, but the source, well, it doesn't think like a human. It doesn't see like us. It doesn't process reality in any way we would recognize. The message you get back isn't going to be a clean, perfect sentence. No, it's going to be a jumbled, poorly put together collage, a kind of hypnotic, weird series of images where the meaning is just out of reach. Sound familiar? It would look a lot like AI art, and it would sound a lot like a UFO story. Okay, but why? What's the point of a language like that? Well, it's all about one thing: disruption. See, in our daily lives, our brains run on autopilot. We have all these mental shortcuts to make sense of the world without really thinking. This language of absurdity, it shatters that. It's a pattern interrupt. When you see an AI image of a horse walking on water, or you read a story about a UFO that looks like a giant floating triangle, your brain's autopilot just shuts down. It's blown apart. And in that moment of confusion, you're forced to stop and actually think about what's real and what's not. And this is a great way to visualize how both of these systems work. The source material calls them replicating and parasitic, which sounds a bit scary, but it just means they need existing stuff to create something new. So for an AI generator, the source material is obvious. It's millions and millions of images scraped from the internet. The output? A bizarre collage. Now, here's the wild part. The theory suggests the UFO phenomenon works the same way, but its source material is us, the human psyche. It pulls from our memories, our myths, our fears, and it creates a kind of symbolic vision out of them. Which leads us to the final, and maybe most important piece of this whole puzzle. Because it turns out there's a third system that does this, one that's not new technology, and it's not from outer space. It's deeply human, it's ancient, and it has been speaking this exact same bizarre language for as long as we've existed. We need to talk about dreams. I mean, think about it. Where else do we find this exact kind of language? A weird, symbolic world that's built from our own data, our memories. A place where totally rational things exist right next to completely irrational things. Where your child at home suddenly has a door that leads to the ocean. We find it every single night in our dreams. Our dreams are the absolute masters of this language of absurdity. They take all our personal data, our memories, our anxieties, our hopes, and they remix it all into these wild narratives that make absolutely no logical sense, but feel so real. Dreams are the original bizarre collage. They're the OG defective transmission that we've all been experiencing our entire lives. Now, this suggests something really profound. What if our ability to dream, what if that's the user interface our minds have for processing the totally unknown? Think of it like this. When our brains encounter something truly alien, something so far outside our normal experience, like a UFO encounter or a brand new AI that can create images from nothing, it doesn't know what to do. So it defaults to its oldest, most basic operating system, dream logic. It acts like a filter, taking the inexplicable and translating it into these weird, symbolic stories that we can at least begin to grapple with. All right, so let's pull all these threads together. We've got AI, we've got UFOs, we've got dreams. What does it all mean when you put them side by side? It means we might be learning to read a completely new kind of reality, one that's been speaking to us in a language we're only just now starting to figure out. So here's the breakdown. Step 1. AI, UFOs, and dreams, as different as they seem, all speak the same language, this language of symbolic absurdity. Step 2. The whole point of this language is to break our everyday perception, to jolt us out of our routines. And step 3. That jolt, that disruption, it has a purpose. It forces us to take a step back and reconstruct what we even think of as real. And this all leads to a really powerful, kind of mind-bending takeaway from the source material. Perhaps, in the end, all of these things, AI, dreams, and UFOs, are all communicating the exact same message to us. And that message is that our neat, tidy, predictable version of reality, well, it's just one version, one channel on a TV with an infinite number of channels. And that the most surprising of all may be the one we have not yet learned to read. And maybe that's the perfect place to leave it. The absurdity, the weirdness, the errors in AI art, or the incoherence in UFO stories, maybe it's not a bug, it's a feature. Maybe it's not noise, but a signal. It's an invitation to learn a new language, to look at the world differently, and maybe, just maybe, to tune into a reality that's been right there the whole time, waiting just outside our field of view. We just have to figure out how to read the signs.